See if we get some rapid fire between these two here tonight. Kelly Pavlik, now 30 years old, 6'2", came in at 167, is contending now as a super middleweight. Currently ranked in the IBF number 8. BO's got him 8, BA's got him 9. Moved to super middleweight in May 2011. He's coming off a March win that has his camp buzzing. Cameron Duncan, his co-manager, said, looked tremendous. Best he's ever looked in his life, in fact. And Scott Sigmon, there he is, crowd booing him. He came into the theme song from Ghostbusters, as in he's going to bust the ghost. Kelly Pavlik went on an all-out media and online social media attack of Kelly Pavlik when he says he signed a contract to fight Pavlik in April, and Pavlik backed out. Glad to be joined ringside by Jalen Rose. Jalen, you had the chance to go visit with Kelly Pavlik in the locker room before this fight. He was all business and serious about some of the things that Scott Sigmon said.
Well, it's one thing to challenge a fighter. There's another thing to challenge a fighter's manhood. And when you do it on social media and you want to now get me into the ring, sometimes you get what you ask for. And maybe Cujo is going to get what he's asking for from the Ghost.
Glad to have you with us. As
all you were missing was the mothballs in your mouth.
You're an offer you can't refuse.
You just named his favorite movie of all time. 10 rounds they're scheduled for. We'll see if we get it between Pavlik and Sigmon. Jay Nady's the ref.
Now, let's go to work.
Teddy, you think this could be a quick night?
Listen, I say it this way. Don't go to your refrigerator, and if you do, walk backwards. Look, we always try to be first class with the fans. And that means being honest at all times, no matter what, with the fans. And I just don't think, Sigmon, I think, is a game kid. But I don't think he belongs in the ring with the former world champion he's in there with tonight. Sigmon has lost to lower-level fighters, maybe C+ level fighters, and he's fighting someone who has beaten A-level fighters in his career.
A lot of his fights have come in places like Virginia and North Carolina, weaker commissions.
Oh, exactly. Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, all South, where you can build a record.
Jalen, sort of like those games when you were with the Fab Five at Michigan, you'd play in November.
Absolutely. And Sigmon, he's a very active fighter. I mean, this is his 11th fight in 16 months.
You don't see that much nowadays. Of course, at the higher level, all you're seeing is a pay-per-view somewhere in the spring, then a pay-per-view in the fall.
And he's never been stopped in his 3 losses. There's something to be said for that.
And there's something to be said, and you brought up a good point, how active he is. You can be active when you're fighting low-level fighters. You know, when you're fighting guys that really aren't pushing you too much, you can get in the ring every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks.
Well, he's self-managed.
And self-trained.
That's not a good thing.
Well, on the 1st and 15th, it can be, when the purses come in.
You know, the forte of Pavlik getting to the middleweight title has always been the jab, controlling range, tall, rangy guy, good length. Looking to set up that, as I said in the fight plan, that 357 Magnum, the straight right hand. But I think that what's overlooked with Pavlik, he has a good left hand, not just a jab, a good left hook to the body and a sneaky one to the head. He can counter with it. He can do it off the jab.
The rap on Pavlik had always been his poor defense, but he says he solved that by counterpunching more.
He feels really good about where he is right now. Thinks that he's right on schedule for what he hopes to be a comeback to the top tier of the sport.
You know, Jay, you bring up, you show as always why you're one of the top commentators, analysts out there. You're prepared. You know, you came to a different sport, but you came here knowing what your subject was, what you were going to be talking about. And you're right, it has been talked about Pavlik's defense could be better. Where it is flawed maybe a little bit, or has been, and you probably won't see it tonight against this level of a fighter. But at the top levels, when you do see it, he handcuffs himself. You know, he looks to block punches. Sometimes he'll slip one time, but he'll come back to the middle. And by blocking punches, as I said, you put handcuffs on yourself. You allow opponents to put punches together on you.
Some analogous to the NBA as well. We'll talk more about that with Jalen Rose when we return. End of one, Scott Sigmon and Pavlik. Joe Teddy and Jalen Rose joining us as our guest analysts tonight. In town for Pacquiao Bradley. You've been working some of these Pacquiao weigh-ins, I've been noticing. You did the Marquez one. You were over there today. Great energy when Pacquiao fights.
Absolutely. I was also fortunate enough to work Cotto versus Margarito. And when Manny Pacquiao's on the card, he brings out the masses. 90 million people in the Philippines stop what they're doing when he's fighting.
I think it's tough sometimes for the Americans to put it in perspective. He's sort of like Elvis and the Beatles rolled into one when it comes to the Philippines. Just an all-time iconic figure in his homeland. Round 2 here between Pavlik and Sigmon. We saw Teddy at the end of that round, Sigmon talking a lot of smack in the midst of the fight at the end of that first round. He's going to need to do more than that.
Talking about smack, there's people who have been known to do that in the sport that Jalen Rose was king in the basketball sport. There was some good smack talkers in that sport. Larry Bird wasn't a bad one, was he?
No, he was not. And the difference in basketball and trash talk, it's a team sport. So if you're a guard and you're talking trash, your power forward and center are actually supposed to back it up for you.
Yeah.
And the 3 officials are quickly there to break it up. So we joke that it's a hold me back moment. But when you're fighting mano-a-mano, there's no such thing as Cujo is learning.
And as he's learning is, I think, Pavlik does have a good left hook. He just staggered him with one a moment ago.
Pavlik's having his way here in the middle of this second round right now. It bloodied his nose and again, showing a little more power to him.
You're not going to see it. Yeah, you're not going to see it. He can do what he wants, I think, with this man in front of him. And again, Jalen brought up a good point that there has been, when there's been knocks on Pavlik, it's been in some of the defensive quarters throughout his career when he's been at the top level. And part of it is handcuffing himself, trying to block too much. And part of it has been that he doesn't make the transition from defense to offense. You know, he's doing one, like even there, he's doing one thing or he's doing the other. He's got to learn to do both and transition from one to another. You make the guy miss, make him pay.
But one thing he is doing very well, when you have a personal dislike for your opponent, you have to keep your discipline intact. You have to fight with the game plan, continue to box, not fight. And that's very tough to do when you don't like the guy that you're going against.
Yeah, but you know, fighters are brought up learning to do that, Jalen, because they understand very early, different from people that fight in the streets. They find out, and people that think they know something about this sport versus really knowing something, they find out if you get angry, you get hit. And guess what? That stems the anger.
Yeah, got to have that control.
Oh, yes, sir. It's, you know, it's the sweet science, and it's called that for a reason. It's not just about brawn. It's about the mind and about the emotional control. Same thing in your sport, no different.
Just trying to smother instead of being on the other end of those right hands there as he jumps forward there. But Pavlik dominating that round. Of course, the Eastern Conference Finals, Saturday night, Game 7.
On floor.
Now let me clue you in on a little something here on Friday Night Fights. The guy sitting to your right, when it comes to Super Bowls, World Series, anything non-boxing, has an unbelievable, maybe a higher winning percentage, projection percentage in the non-boxing sports than some of his big projections in the big fights. So, Teddy, your thoughts on Game 7, Celtics Heat?
Well, the first thing I'm going to ask Jalen Rose a question. You know, I know that LeBron James, and I would think you're going to agree with me, and that's that left hook hurting Sigmon. And Sigmon is...
He's just trying to hold on there.
Trying to survive now. I think that Pavlik decided maybe we're going to end this party now. I think he was carrying him a little bit, or possibly carrying him, and just feeling his way through and getting a couple rounds under his belt, figuring that he had the liberty to do that with the opponent in front of him. But
don't grab.
I feel that LeBron James is the best basketball player on the planet. Would you agree?
I do agree. He's the most versatile player. He's an all-defensive first-team performer also, and he makes his teammates better.
Here's my question. Is he mentally tough enough to close out a 7th game when it's all on the line? I know he's the best player, and he was the best player in the 6th game the other night. This is not the 6th game. This is the 7th game. If there's shadows and there's bats in the belfry and there's a little weakness of somebody mentally, this is where it shows up. Is it showing up?
I think it will show up. And Game 6 was like a Game 7 for the Miami Heat because obviously if they lost that game, they were going home. And his numbers were tremendous. 45 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists. The last person to do that, the only other person to do that in a playoff game, his name is Wilt Chamberlain. So that doesn't happen very often. And just like Pavlik here, LeBron James closed the show in the Garden. I anticipate that the Miami Heat are going to do the exact same thing.
I'm going with the Heat.
Don't grab.
Teddy has spoken. Mark it
Watch your
down.
head.
Heat in game 7.
And right now, I'd be going with the uppercut if I was Pavlik, because you got a short guy who's leaning forward. We talked about it in the fight plan a little bit. Take a little step back.
Watch your head.
Let him fall
Don't
into
hold.
an uppercut. So right now, Pavlik is allowing Sigmon to smother him a little bit. Give himself a little room. Take that step back as he does
There
right
it is.
there.
There's the space.
Get a little
Actually,
extension.
Sigmon closed it with a left hand for a moment. And now Sigmon with a looping right hand on the inside.
That Jalen brought up. You know, he disconnects a little bit. He goes defensive, but he goes defensive without any offense coming back. He allows Sigmon, even just a game Sigmon, not a top-level guy, not a real talented guy, but a game guy, to handcuff him, to get punches off, to have a moment, to hang in there.
Final minute of this third round, by far Sigmon's best work, but still Pavlik in control. End of 3.